We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Change the name of the high school and all James Woods can say is ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy. When a ball turned into a vampire, all James Woods could say was ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy. Sat around the house and said, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy. And you know that James Woods practiced his lines real well, but everything that he reads becomes real hard to spell. Everyone tries to help him, but the words just won't come out. There's only one thing he can think of, and it's what comes out his mouth. Piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy. When he comes out of his house, the women scream and shout, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy. And you know that he's an actor, the best of them always says, ooh, a piece of candy. A piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy. Reese's Pieces on the floor and watch him come a saying, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy. And you know that James Woods practices lines real well, but everything that he reads becomes real hard to spell. Everyone tries to help him, but the words just won't come out. There's only one thing he can think of, and it's what comes out his mouth. Ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy. When he comes out of his house, the women scream and shout, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy, ooh, a piece of candy. A piece of candy. Ooh, a piece of candy.
That girl, wherever
seen things you people wouldn't believe.
So, a creature for my amusement. Prepare for battle.
Fucking thing sucks!
Oh boy. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming out, y'all. Your Uncle Warren here. My fake background. I did take this picture, by the way. That's Lower Manhattan. So from the Brooklyn side, near the Brooklyn Promenade. So FYI, a little inside information there for you. Good evening and welcome. Hope everybody's having a great night. It's Thursday night, and we already got some people in the pit. We got Troy's here, Colin is here. Welcome. Velvet Trance, hello, doll. Dolores Piers and Greg's Brew. Thanks for coming out. So far, that's our little crew of misfits and puppety oddballs in the chat. Tonight, we got a very special guest. I hope, I hope everything goes well. I hope you guys, we had a little audio issue a few weeks ago, and I had to rebuild this monster. So hopefully, fingers crossed, you can hear everybody. If you just give me a thumbs up in the chat, if you can hear us okay, that would be super, super cool. But I'm not the jerk you wanted to see. Bring this special lady in, Sabby Sabs. What's up, lady? How are you, doll?
Hi, Warren. How's it going?
I don't know. I don't think I have enough adult beverages. I didn't really plan very well for tonight. I was kind of running around, and I only got one of my delicious, what I call country champagne, the Coors banquet beer. So, but I think I should be okay. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I've been having a pretty busy last 2 weeks, actually.
You have. Before we get into that, because we were talking before the show about what you did last weekend. I wanted this is the kind of show we get everybody on, and we like to let them tell us a little bit about themselves that they don't usually get to do on their own shows or on other shows, because you're usually talking about the issues, the news of the day, that sort of thing. But tonight, you are the news on Extra Bulla. So we want to hear everything about you. And first off, one of the things we usually ask is the Marvel origin story. I had Franco on about a month or so ago. And he's a big old nerd too. He's all into that Marvel stuff. So when I said Marvel origin story, he was like, "What? I said, "Did you get bit by a radioactive protester? You know what happened? How did you do it?" But I'm pretty sure you didn't get bit by a radioactive protester. But there has to be an origin story for how you got to where you are in this space and what motivated you. How did you get here? Tell us your story.
Well, I was a huge Bernie supporter. I went to Bernie's rally here in Boston. So that's kind of what brought me over, I would say, to the left for the past couple of years. And then last year, well, maybe not last year, actually 2020, when Bernie suspended his campaign, I just started asking myself, well, then what happens to the rest of his movement? I started to notice that it seemed like he was not going to lead this movement anymore. And he was trying to get people to vote for Joe Biden and heavily pushing that we need to back blue no matter who. And that actually made me frustrated. It made me start to question what was really going on in progressive space. Then came Force the Vote, and the squad deciding not to force the vote, not even trying, after Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman went on CNN and made it seem like they possibly would not vote for Nancy Pelosi. After Force the Vote, for me, I was like, that's it. I was like, enough is enough. So that is what prompted me to start my own podcast. I had watched Left Independent Media for, past couple of years, obviously. And I felt like there were voices that were missing. I didn't see many Black people in the space. I didn't see, well, with the exception of Brianna Joy Gray, I didn't see any Black women. And she came from Bernie's campaign. So I just felt like there was an audience. I don't want to say audience. There was a type that was not represented in this space. And then when I started to focus a lot on the money, that was when I started to realize that none of them were working class. None of these commentators were working class. Most of them did not grow up working class. They just don't know what it's like. And so I thought it was important that people hear that perspective, because I was one of the people who donated a lot of money to Bernie Sanders and AOC and members of the squad. And I have friends of mine as well who quit their jobs and canvass for Bernie Sanders and AOC. And it just seemed like to me that the people who told us to go out and do that, they weren't doing that. And they want us to do this again, to try to support progressives, to put them back into the Democratic Party again. Meanwhile, they're wealthy. So I had like a self-reflection, and I felt like we got played and they got paid. Like long story short. And so I started to realize, talking to Nick and Rome, I met them through Twitter, starting to realize that like this is not going to be the path forward, that we really need to do like mutual aid and more direct action to actually help people in our community. And nobody else was really talking about that, with the exception of like Convo Couch. They're heavy for like direct action. MCSC Network was heavy for direct action. And other than that, a lot of people just weren't talking about it. And I started to question, why are they not talking about this? So the grift is real. Basically, I saw that a lot of the people that were telling us to fight really did not want to fight and didn't really plan on fighting. And I felt like they caved too easily after Trump lost and Biden won. And for me, that was like, no, enough is enough. I was like, I need to start my own show and tell people what's really going on.
Well, I tell you, your services to doing what you do in this space was desperately needed. What you and Revolutionary Blackout Network bring to what is changing landscape. I think we have the mainstream media for as long as I can remember. Well, at least since 2016, to me, probably before, and the mainstream media has just been awful, right? They don't serve the public as much as they serve those that sponsor their news, that own their station, and their cabal of buddies that kind of run the show. In the elite oligarchy space, and I tell people I was a news guy for a long time down south. I worked in local news, and I worked with some really good journalists who taught me what it's like to find the truth, to root out corruption on the local level, right? And but you can apply that to the national level as well. But your networks like ABC, NBC, CBS before cable news. I'm an old fart, so I remember before cable. I was born on before there was Earth. I just floated in space, and it was fine. It's a little bit better on the back. But before cable news came along, you relied on the networks, and you relied on your local news. When local news wasn't a moneymaker, right? Or when any of the news was a moneymaker. It was a requirement by the FCC as a public service. You had to have a certain number of hours of children's programming. You had to have a certain number of hours of community programming, which included your news, right? And I used to watch the news with my dad, and that's where I kind of got like this, this interest in the news. I remember way back when like Frank Reynolds was the anchor of ABC, because we lived in a rural area. We could only pick up ABC. We could barely pick up NBC and CBS. But long story short is that when cable came along, and cable 24-hour news, it wasn't 24 hours news, it was 24 hours of airtime, right? You had news in there, but you had to fill the rest of that time. So that's when they started bringing on consultants. They started bringing on like experts, and then it became less, not so much fact-based, and it became more opinionated, right? And that's what I think really messed up CNN. Is the fact that they had to fill all that time. They had to fill it for the sponsors, but you had to have that sexy stuff. You had to have that. You had to have those sexy stories that really may not have, been important. But and then as it evolved, it just turned into opinion. So now we fast forward to where we are now, when I see folks like you mentioned, like Mikasa Sukasa, everybody in that network there, RBN, also, our Chicago people, headline, Heartlands Media. And it really inspired me again to believe in that, okay, journalism isn't dead. It's just dead in mainstream media. You know what I mean?
Right.
Which kind of brings me to what happened over this past weekend. We talked before we went live about how your channel has just taken off, and I think that's because there was such a dire need for what you provide, because you do come at it from the working class angle, and you give people that information that they're not going to get from even like some of these other folks that are on the internet, like your The Hill, or some of these other folks that have managed to weasel their way into this space and try to claim that, we're progressive news. And no, you're not. You're all bought and paid for. But so this past weekend, you had the women's summit, and you had a plethora of women on there, very very intelligent ladies that also occupy the space. And if you can, just kind of talk about that a little bit. Talk about the kinds of women that you had on, and some of the subjects that you were talking about.
Absolutely. So there were 4 panels. The first one was women's health. The second panel was women in the workplace. And on Sunday, we had 2 panels as well. So there was violence against women, and there were women activists was the final panel for the Women's Summit. And it was really important to me when I put this together that I had women from all different walks of life, different class, different races. That was important to me. So I wanted to make sure that I had people on that were also a part of the working class. I think it's important that you hear those voices as well. And what was interesting is for the most part, I don't think I've seen a lot of them on the same panel before. So it was kind of fun, putting this together and who could I put on this panel with this person? I'm going to really mix this up because I think that's important. So on the women's health panel, we had Eleanor Goldfield on the same panel with Marianne Williamson. And that was an interesting discussion because obviously Eleanor is anti-capitalist and Marianne is not. And that subject came up when we were talking about healthcare. So I think it's important that people hear from people that they may not necessarily agree with. I think it's kind of boring sometimes when you see people come on and they have the same talking points all the time as the host. So that was interesting to do, just to get different perspectives, to put people on a panel that most of the time, or you would probably never see them on screen together. Let's just be realistic. For women in the workplace, that was an important panel as well, because I did have an author come on who that is what she does for her job. She talks about why women are paid less. She talks about the importance of negotiation, that women are less likely to negotiate salary, how we can get what we want, what's the right thing to say to get those things in the workplace. And at the same time, everybody else on the panel, for the most part, was working class. So I just thought it was a good dynamic to put different people together, but talk about issues that affect women and how they affect women and what we can possibly do about it. Violence against women, we talked about women in domestic abuse situations, why they may not leave those situations, which a lot of times I think people assume that they don't want to leave just because they think the person will change. Some people can't leave because of economic reasons. And we discussed that. I thought that was really important. So there were people on the panel who were survivors of those abuses. There were also people on the panel who learned a lot from each other, right? So Steph from Jimmy Dore's show, she was on there. She brought up an aspect that I really didn't consider when thinking about violence against women. She brought up the parenting situation, how what we teach our kids, and I don't have kids, but what we teach our kids, how that can affect them later on in life. Are we teaching them how to treat people? So that was important. Then you had other people who brought up their own personal experiences. So it was good to hear those as well. And then the women activist panel, Shama Sawant was on there. And a lot of people think that they see her just as a politician. Shama Sawant is also an activist. So she's done a lot with her group, Socialist Alternative. She's a fighter. We had a Finney on that panel also who's with freedom fighters in DC. She does a lot of mutual aid. Josana from our network, RBN, she was bringing the international perspective when you talk about activism. So she's coming from Brazil. And there's a big difference from the way people stand up and fight in Brazil than the way that they do here in America. So all those different voices. Glory from MCSC, she's a big, Assange supporter and protester and advocate as well. And then you have Medea Benjamin, who is a co-founder of Code Pink, who talks a lot about foreign policy and fights on those issues. So the idea was to bring women together on different panels that for whatever reason, you most likely would not see them on a panel together. And that was the idea, was to bring them together to have these conversations and possibly show them like what they have in common, but also the differences as well.
Right on. And it kind of struck a chord with me too, because when growing up down south, I knew women, and some of that was related to as well, who had been through abusive relationships. And it's a weird culture in that respect. Even today in the 21st century, you still have women down there who are afraid to leave abusive relationships because they think they might, it's, out of the frying pan into the fire, so yep. it just breaks my heart that it's like, I as a man, I want to do what I can to protect the women in my life that I love, and but I don't want to step over boundaries either, because I know a lot of women are independent too, and it's I grew up, like I said, I grew up in the South, and I ain't exactly young, and I remember the old days where it was just like women, were told that they had a place, and now but today it's just so it's like an explosion of so many opportunities for women, yet there are still these barriers that maybe men or society puts on them. So, I mean, seeing that, seeing those panels and all of those different perspectives on those panels was really good, and can't get enough of those. I was talking to our buddy Oz from Roar Media, who's a huge advocate for women in media too, and we were both talking about, yes, there definitely needs to be more women in the space. And speaking of the space, you happen to hook up, like you had mentioned, some members of this ragtag bunch known as the Revolutionary Blackout Network. They're a force to be reckoned with too. I've had JB on the show a few months back. I love JB. He's my adopted little brother. He really is. He's as crazy as a shithouse rat, but a good time. It's good time crazy. So, but very smart as a whip. And I often watch his shows too. How did you get involved with like Nick and Compton J and that crew? How did you end up in RBN?
I met all of them on Twitter. believe it or not. So when people say Twitter is in real life, it's just I met all of them on Twitter. I think the first person I had on was Rome, and I saw like a lot of the activism that he was doing. I saw like his information about Tour for the Poor. So I was like, I got to get this guy to come on. So he was the first one I had on. After that was Compton J. Nick came on later. RJ came on. And I think it was after RJ came on, that was when they asked me if I wanted to be a part of RBN as well. So
Right on. Um, and really, they started out as a group last year, right? I mean, all of y'all took off around the same time, and like I said, I mean, just looking at your numbers on YouTube alone, it's just amazing. You can tell how much your presence was needed because so many people were drawn to you, and that's why I'm very excited. Even though these are some very dark times that we have right now, I'm still hopeful because of people like you, because of RBN, because of Mikasa Sukasa and Hardlets Media and all the independent journalists out there who are putting in the work and really exposing a lot of these people who say they are working for us as frauds. You know, like you had talked about Bernie Sanders. I was one of those people too. I was in the political wilderness for a long time. In fact, the last person I think I voted for maybe was, I want to say Michael Dukakis, you know, and that was 1,000 years ago. Because I was just like electoral politics. They were just throwing out the same types of people, and I was like, well, what's the point? You know, nothing's going to change because you don't have a different breed in there. But then Bernie comes along, and in hindsight, I feel like, to be honest, I feel like a sucker. You know, and I think a lot of other people do too. You know, that Bernie said let's bring a revolution, AOC, let's bring the ruckus. You know, let's fight, let's do this. And then they get in. Well, Bernie was already in, but you know, it's 2016 and in 2020 he just caved and said, no, we can't afford to have Trump in here. But then we get Trump. And then 2020 it was the same thing. Oh, no, my good friend Joe, and we can't afford to have Trump back in here. And you know, I just felt like, you know what, Bernie, you're just sheepdogging people. You're just a shepherd. The Democratic Party had been stale for a long time. I mean, Obama excited a lot of people too. And then, you know, in the 8 years he was president, we found out, you know, who he really was too. So it just seemed like it's just one person after another was coming along like they were some sort of like, you know, savior person that's going to help the working class and the poor. And it just seemed like they were just getting dumped on. And even Bernie said, like, towards the end, he was like, well, you got to vote for Joe. What's wrong with you? And he was admonishing the same people that he wanted to be in a revolution with, you know, and it's like, ugh. That's why Daddy drinks. So, oh, sweet nectar. You never let me down. You never want me to vote for Dems. Anyway, so I guess what I want to ask now is that now that you have become like this juggernaut. And I don't know, you may be like, no, I'm not a juggernaut. You are a juggernaut. You are a juggernaut. You got 2 tickets to the gun show, all right? You got to go to the veterinarian because those pythons are sick, all right? And that's a good power to have because we need like powerful voices like that. You're not on the grift. You're not selling bullshit cereal like Sam Cedar does on his show. You know, he sells like this. I got to tell you, I did watch Sam Cedar for a while back in 2016, right? and he would do this. He would peddle like this bizarre like shit you'd buy from Amway. I don't know. Do you remember? You know what Amway is? Okay, yeah.
Yes.
For the youngins in the audience, Amway is basically like a pyramid scheme. It's like Scientology only for grocery stores, and basically what it is, it's like you sell this stuff and then you get other people to work for you under you, and then you go up the tiers and anyway, that's what it just felt like to me, that we were just being sold a bill of goods. But we should, I want to talk about some more fun stuff. Something I always do on the show. We like to get the heavy stuff off the top, because I want to see let people see where you're coming from a serious vein, but they also want people to see where you come from on other personal levels. Like, I know you're a Northeasterner like I am. How is did you get a lot of snow during the last during the nor'easter that we had like a few weeks back? You guys always do. Y'all always like New York if New York gets 6 inches, like Massachusetts will get 6 feet. It's crazy.
No, it's
right? Like everything's buried in snow, and the people are like, where's the car? I can't see the car. It must be over there. It's too far. Where's the car? Vote Quimby. We were talking earlier about you live in Massachusetts. I've been to Boston. I said, my sister used to live in Gloucester, or as the Southerners call it, Gloucester, because they don't.
True.
They don't know how to pronounce Worcestershire sauce. All those towns. That's the only reason I know is from my sister. But how do you like the Northeast? I know you're from a whole bunch of different places, but how do you like it up there in Massachusetts?
I would say out of all the places I lived, this is probably my second favorite place that I've lived. And don't get me wrong, Massachusetts has its issues, just like any other place. But I mean, I like it here. I've been here for a little over 10 years now. It's a little bit different. I think when you come here as a student, a lot of people come here for college. That's how they end up here and they find jobs after. Versus I think when you just come here for a job. And I came here for grad school and then I stayed. So I think that, Boston, and I'm talking pre-pandemic, Boston's a fun place. There's a lot of cool restaurants. We used to do a meetup group for people who were new to Boston. And that's how I really discovered this city. Honestly, that's how I discovered Boston, Massachusetts, and some of New England as well. And there's a lot to do here that I think people just may not know about. If you come here as a tourist, you're not really getting to see what Boston is like. You're just getting to see Boston proper, right? But there's so many other neighborhoods that you should check out. Jamaica Plain, Dorchester, even going up to the North Shore, like you said, Gloucester's in North Shore. I think you need to check those places out as well. There's a lot of history here. So if you are a history buff, there's so many sites that you can come see. But I think that it's definitely moved from being a working class city to a professional city. And that's because of gentrification. So what I think is important for people to know, the Boston that you see in the movies, such as The Departed, Mystic River, that Boston doesn't exist anymore. It is more so a gentrified city with a lot of colleges. And the working class people in Boston, a lot of those families have been pushed further out. So you might find them in places like Quincy, or if you go further up to the North Shore at Revere. So that's important for people to know when you watch those movies about Boston. That's based on what Boston used to be like. Boston now is similar to, I would say similar to what Brooklyn is now, because when I lived in Brooklyn, it was definitely more diverse. Brooklyn has been heavily gentrified now too, as well. So that's what it is. So you are coming into an academic elite area. I just want to make that clear. A lot of people here have advanced degrees. So me coming here for grad school was not a big thing. But coming from, South Carolina, I went to undergrad in South Carolina. It's not as common for people to have like advanced degrees. Like, it's not as common for everyone to have gone to college. So when you come here, if you meet someone that has a master's degree, that's like nothing here. Like, so many people have them. Like, it's so you have a lot of people that have come from Boston, and they come to these institutions like Harvard and MIT, and then they stay here and they start families here. So you have a lot of highly educated people kind of in a dense space, because Boston's pretty compact.
Mm.
And what's unfortunate though is that, I mean, if you are an academic, I think you're going to love it here. I worked in higher ed too, so that was a part of this as well. But I think, unfortunately, this is no longer a place where a working class family can move to, if that makes sense, because the rent is ridiculously high. We don't have rent control. We don't have rent stability. So the landlords can increase the rent as much as they want and as many times as they want. And I've had friends that have lost like their apartments because like the landlord increased the rent, they couldn't afford it. Or you have a lot of investors will come in and they'll just buy the entire building. And then my friend would have to just find another apartment somewhere else. Like, that's happened to a couple people I know here. So I think, the tech industry came here and that made us number 2 after Silicon Valley. A lot of people don't know that. So we have a lot of startups here. And it's just changed. It's changed over the past like 10 years, and more people are having to move further out.
Yeah, and you have MIT up there too, and that's probably has something to do with all the tech companies. It's easy to go from MIT to just stay in Boston because you're going to be making you're going to be making bank. And you talk about how the gentrification is. You said you had lived here briefly. And it's nothing like it's nothing like when I first moved here. I've been here about 13 years now. I came here in 2009, and you could start to see the gentrification taking hold. Like, one of the things here in Brooklyn, they had a law where you couldn't have buildings over a certain height, right? So you look to Manhattan, you see all the tall skyscrapers and whatnot, but then you see Brooklyn, you see all the brownstones and whatnot. But now that's changed. Mm-hmm. They changed that probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I think. And now, when you go as you're going up Flatbush, when you're going towards like the Manhattan Bridge, like you're around downtown Brooklyn Heights, that area. It's just these giant. It's like Manhattan East, It's ridiculous. Yep. And same thing. It's like the blue collar workers. A lot of them, they have to take a bus in. If they're fortunate, they can drive in for the jobs, but a lot of times they have to take, the Long Island Railroad or the Metro Tech North. Just to get into the city, and that ain't cheap. And now they've upped. Even people in Staten Island are feeling the pinch too, because they've upped the tolls on the bridges coming in, and it's just ridiculous. The only reason I can afford to live here is as like I tell people, I live in a glorified walk-in closet, and my landlord is a mom and pop, so thank goodness he was able to hang on during the pandemic. There are a few professionals that live in the building who have taken advantage of the lower rents that are here, but even then, he hasn't raised the rents here. But on either side of me, they renovated these brownstones. Oh my God, the one over here, they're single floor apartments, so it's like one apartment per floor. $5,000 a month for the rent for that, and that's on the low end. And I got, and same thing over here behind me. It's like, I feel like, like you got the two rich siblings, and then the middle child who's like, pulling out the pockets, pay poor tax of $15, just like on the Monopoly board. but it's there's some areas of Brooklyn that are still hanging on as far as like culture wise, because that's why I moved to New York. I didn't come here for like the big tech job or so. I came here, a buddy of mine was living here, and I wanted to live the New York life that I had seen. Like you said, Boston doesn't look anything like anything in the Departed or in the movies like that. Same thing with New York. I grew up with like seeing New York as kind of this gritty place, you know, where it's like more for artists and more for people who were tired of the country life or the rural life and just wanted to live the city experience. And now it's like it feels like New York is it feels like Disneyland almost. You know, everything is a tourist trap. And it's real expensive.
It's very different. I went back to Williamsburg a couple years ago to visit, and I couldn't believe what I saw. Yeah, I couldn't believe what I saw because I was like, what happened to Williamsburg? Like that used to be like a European area. And there was a store I used to go to. The reason I knew Williamsburg is there's a store I used to go to there called Beacon's Closet. And they kind of did like, I think like secondhand clothing, like you could give your clothing to them and all that kind of stuff. So it was a pretty cool place to go to. And when I went back, I just thought to myself, like, where did all these condos come from? What happened to Williamsburg? So it felt like the culture that was there before was gone. And that's unfortunate. I did the same thing. I went back to my old neighborhood in Brooklyn, Midwood. Now that's near the avenues, so like Avenue J. And it's well, it was a Jewish neighborhood at the time. And when I went back, I was like, what happened to Midwood? I'm like, what have they done to this place? The pizza place I used to go to called DeFara's Pizza. That place is like, it was like a hole in the wall, but they had the best pizza. Those are some of the best places to go to sometimes for food.
Yes.
And I went back. Yeah. And I went back and I was like, what the hell? This place has tables now? They never had tables. They're selling wine. And I'm looking around and there's like all these hipsters. Like, I'm like, no, what did you do to DeFara's Pizza? So it's so different now. It's so, I don't like that. I don't like when they take the culture out. So yeah, it's definitely changed.
Yeah, it's what it is like you got a bunch of rich people whose kids want to live the New York life. So they get to come here and they can afford these exorbitant rents. And then the landlords are like, oh, well, you know, I need to get more people like this in so I can like make more money off my buildings. And then all of a sudden the poor people, the people who, the families in the neighborhoods, they're like, we can't afford to live here anymore. Williamsburg is a good example because like the first place I lived here was around where Bed-Stuy meets Bushwick. It's like Broadway and Flushing Avenue. And it was a great neighborhood too. Very, very heavy Puerto Rican culture there. And just like, you know, it was just like the movies. You'd see the fire hydrants open and during the summertime and kids running around in their swim trunks in the streets, you know, and it was just like, man, this is why I moved here. But then when you go further up, I think it's Central, I'm not quite sure, begins with a C. But anyway, you keep going further up as you're going towards Williamsburg, and then you start seeing the condos. And then like Greenpoint and Williamsburg, all of that is just nothing but hipster bars and just like people with square beards. I don't get that either. I don't know what that's some like futuristic, you know, Abraham Lincoln shit. I don't know what the fuck that is. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't mind change, even though I'm an old guy. I don't mind change, but I don't like that kind of change. You know what I mean? Especially when like poor people are going to have to pay more money just to make the same amount of money to come back into the city and work. So there was one thing I wanted to ask you about. You're a sports fan, right? You're a football fan. You're a Patriots fan.
I am. I'm sorry.
No. Tom Brady's gone, so now they're just regular ass team now. So. But they still got Belichick with his cutoff hoodie things, He does. He looks like somebody's dad cleaning the garage. I swear to God, he does. He's just like, come on, dude. What are you doing, man? But that's his own style, and I think they sell that shit now because of him. Do you want to talk a little football? Do you like?
Yeah.
Because I like. All right, so let me couch this by saying when Misty, Comrade Misty, was on the show, she never gets a chance to talk about her Ohio Buckeyes anywhere else because she's all either talking about her sons or she's talking about more important things, and she really, nobody wants to talk to her about that. I said, come on here, we'll talk a little football. It's fine. How do you like what's his name? Is it Mac Jones, the quarterback? That kid from Alabama? Do you like him?
Well, he's still learning and growing. I mean, he's new. You got to give him.
Oh,
some
he's
time.
growing.
I'm honestly,
he's an eater.
Like, I'm
he's an
honestly
eater.
I'm surprised we made the playoffs. I didn't think we were going to make the playoffs. I'm surprised that we did, but I didn't think we go far in the playoffs. But yeah, we're really feeling the hurt of not having Tom Brady, and that was really like a big loss to me. Like when Tom Brady like left the Patriots, I remember I was talking to my dad about it. My dad was like, now you'll see how the rest of us feel, how the rest of all of the football fans have felt over the past couple of years while you guys have continued to win all the time. And I told my dad, like, it felt like I lost a friend. I'm not even kidding. Like, I was like, Tom Brady is leaving again. And my dad's like, he's been with you guys for years. He's allowed to go play somewhere else. And I'm like, no. Because like Tom Brady has spent like his entire football career before he left with the Patriots.
20 years. And yeah, 20 years.
Exactly. I mean, some people went to college and graduated in that time. So it's just, that was a big loss. But again, I didn't blame him because Belichick is cheap. Like, they don't want to pay these guys like what they're worth. And Tom Brady took pay cuts before so that we could get better players on the team. So he's one of those people that made a sacrifice for that. And they just didn't want to pay him. And they didn't want to give him the people that he needed around him on that team to do well in those last 2 years. They didn't want to do it. Like, they're just so cheap. And eventually, I think he just got tired of it. He was like, you know what? I'm going to go somewhere else where my voice will be heard and I'll be respected. And I think it had gotten to that point where Belichick is just basically like, this is my team. I'm the coach and you do what I say or we get rid of you. And they'll let you go like that. He's done that to a lot of players that play for the Patriots. And Tom Brady feels like he had invested so much time in that team. At some point, you should hear something that he has to say, like get his opinion on something. And Belichick is really not trying to hear that. He is not about that life. So Brady left and went to Tampa.
Yeah, it was like a battle. It seemed like a battle of egos to me because they were trying to prove who really was the one that made the Patriots great, right? So Tom Brady leaves, and I think the Patriots had a losing season that year. Maybe. I mean, it wasn't horrible. No. Maybe it was like 7-9 or something like that. But the thing I didn't like about it, my oldest sister, like I said, who lived in Gloucester, huge Patriots fan. She felt like she'd lost a child. I said, Mary, that's not your blood relative. That's a football player. You should really chill. But she's like, no, we'll never be good again. It was all Tom. It wasn't Belichick. And then the thing that pissed me off, because I'm a Saints guy, right? So that asshole Brady decides to go to Tampa Bay, win a Super Bowl in his own stadium. Oh, and erased like my guy Drew Brees. I would have felt the same way if like Drew Brees had went somewhere else before he retired. I would have been like, no, you belong to us. And he had Drew Brees had a lot of the football records, and I have the sneaky suspicion that Brady hung on just long enough so he could get all those records away from Brees, and Yeah, there's a special place in hell for Tom Brady. I don't mean that personally. If you like him, that's fine. If he's swell, okie dokie to you, I'm not going to shit on him, but, fuck that guy. That's all I'm going to say. And I'm glad he's retired. I hope he goes to the old folks home and, gets, I don't know, cooties or something in the old folks home. I don't know. He's got more money. He's got all the records. He's got more money and he knows what to do with. And, he was, him and Robert Kraft, they were Trump guys. Trump.
Yeah, I did not agree with his politics.
Yeah.
Obviously, I did not agree with his politics.
Yeah, he. That was another thing that really pissed me off about him. It's like you took Drew Brees' records, and you're a Trump guy. Why I oughta. But I got over it.
Well, he comes from a conservative family. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but one of Tom Brady's sisters, I can't remember her name, is married to Kevin Youkilis, former player for the Red Sox.
Oh, okay.
And the story is the reason why they had to get married is because she was pregnant. That's the story. I don't know that for sure, but he does come from a pretty conservative family. So I did know that, religion wise, at least.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of those players, it makes sense because, like, conservatives are always saying that they want to keep your taxes low, and a lot of these guys are, they're all basically, most of them are all millionaires, so of course they want to hang on to as much money as they can. So I guess I could see that, it's still scummy, but still, it's. The thing that really pissed me off, though, was him going to Tampa Bay. He could have went anywhere. He could have stayed in the AFC. Denver had a shitty quarterback. Why didn't he go to Denver? Was he, too old for, that altitude, to not enough oxygen? Give him a tank on the sidelines, Don't send him down to Tampa. Jeez. Although it was great this year, my Saints, they swept him in the regular season and shut him out. I think in Tampa, which was wild. It was one of these rock fights. It was 9-0 that they beat them, but still, it's you didn't score nothing, fucker. Anyway, I get a little. I've had a little something to drink, and then when I talk about football, I get a little angry. But my Saints won a Super Bowl back in 2009. I can die happy. I'm pretty cool with that. So, but I think but what they did, what the Patriots did last year was not bad. I mean, they made the playoffs, and everybody forgets that Tom Brady was I think he was a 7th or 6th or a 7th round pick, right? Out of Michigan. And,
199.
If Drew Bledsoe doesn't get hurt, it was kind of like the same situation Brett Favre had in Green Bay. There was this guy, his name was Majikowski. What was his? I can't remember his first name. Anyway, so they had traded. Not a lot of people know. Brett Favre was drafted by Atlanta, right? And he sat on the bench in Atlanta. So he ends up getting traded to Green Bay. And I think it was named Don Majikowski. That was the starter. Majikowski gets hurt. Favre comes in, lights it up, and then all of a sudden it's Don who? And then the rest is history. But it was the same. But Bledsoe was a different situation. Bledsoe was a known name, and he was actually pretty decent. He was pretty good. But then he got hurt, and then they put in Tom Brady, and 20 years later.
But he got better. He got better, and they refused to put him back in. Drew Bledsoe was actually still hurt about that till this day. Someone interviewed him, I think it was 2 years ago, and he said he's still bothered by that he didn't get to play in that Super Bowl.
Yeah. They went with a hot hand. I mean, I guess that's what Belichick does. He said, well, and then they end up winning their first Super Bowl. And everybody forgets about the one in '86, where or 85 when the Bears just beat the hell out of them. But they had a bunch of, this was like, that was 1,000 years ago. But anyway, I can talk about sports all night, so I probably shouldn't do that to you. I know you got to go here. Sabby, you're so sweet. I appreciate you you coming on. Did you have a good time? Everything fine? Were you comfortable? Do you have enough pillows, or you got enough comfort? Where do you feel okay?
Yeah.
You feel okay about this? Okay, cool. I'd love to get you back on. Like, I'm gonna do another show about women in independent media. Hopefully, somewhere down the line, maybe towards the summer. If you're more than welcome to come on back for that. Hopefully, if you're available, please do. But in the meantime, I've got all your information below in the description, like where to find you on Twitter. But I mean, just tell people where you're at and what you got coming up next, okay?
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter. My handle is Sabby Sabs 2, the number 2. And you can find me on YouTube. My channel is Sabby Sabs. It's the same name on Rockfin as well, and Spotify. What do I have coming up next? Tomorrow, I'll be live on my channel at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll also be live on RBN at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I am going to attempt to do call-in during my Friday show tomorrow. I'm going to attempt. I don't know I don't know if this is going to work for sure. But yeah, so people will be able to start calling in. CJ did that today on RBN. I really do like it. I think it's a cool feature, and it'll be nice to hear from you guys and actually hear your voice and not just see you in the chat and read your chat. So definitely check that out.
Yeah, I think that's a relative. It's like a new twist on an old school idea too. The call-in show. The old school was like you actually you'd use a regular phone and call a number, and now it's an app, right? It's the call-in app. I know it was for Apple, but now it's also for Android phones too. So it's like pretty much anybody can use it now, right? As long as they download the app.
Yep.
Right on.
Yep, it's pretty cool. And if you don't want to download the app, like you can still listen to call in on your laptop. But if you actually want to call in and ask a question, you have to download the app.
Right on. I'm old school, so if I ever do a call-in show, I'm probably gonna get people to use smoke signals or cans with the string. But I'm not providing the cans. That's we got a little bit of a budget here. Anyway, thank you so much, Sabby. Appreciate you. Love you so much, and keep on rocking. Hang on a second. I'll say goodbye to you properly. Let me just give a shout out to the folks that are in the chat here with us tonight. Like I said, Greg Bruce, gamer, who is now known as Socialist and Ganja for Life. That's very deep, brother. Reefer After Dark. Check out Reefer's show tomorrow night too, I believe. Oh my. I told you we're budget. Everything's going to hell. I know, right? It's like Ed Wood production. He's him and Colin Radix Carter tomorrow night. And who else showed up here? We had a pretty good crowd here. So Atris is here, and Fred Edward, Kim, and I think I got everybody there. If I missed somebody, I'm sorry. Just blame it on the old man disease. Thanks again to you, Sabby. Love everybody in the chat. Have a great night. And not sure what we got going on next week. Might me doing a potluck, get some weirdos in here and have some fun. Just talk about some crazy stuff. We'll see. Just check the tweeters. I got all of my information in the thing below. You can check me out on Linktree, Extrabulla. All my donation and info links are there as well. Please like, share, and subscribe. Not just to my show, but Sabby's show as well. Spread the word because everybody needs to know about all these wonderful creators in the space that are doing the good work that a lot of people are not doing. So have a great night, and as always, wash your tuchus. Nobody likes a dirty ass. Good night.